Borowski reported online. We've just spent a lot of the break talking about pets. There is a story that we will try and get to about just that subject. In the meantime, there's lots of politics as well around. The front page of The Times, Millie, you're going to kick us off with. And there've been a few front pages focusing on Rachel Reeves, who's had a tough week this week, and a lot of questions now about how she's going to pay for that climb down over welfare, which has left a big bill.
Yeah, she's in a very tricky position. It's safe to say she's had a rough week. This story is her warning her cabinet that any form of tax rises are going to be difficult, and that the tax rises she put in place at the last budget were sort of low-hanging fruit. So they unveiled £40 billion worth of tax rises. Now it looks like she's coming back for more after their £5 billion welfare U-turn. She hasn't said it explicitly, but these warnings to her cabinet, she seems to be going quite a lot further than the way that she's been speaking in interviews where she's just been refusing to rule it out.
In The Guardian, she's done an interview, hasn't she, this morning, where she hasn't ruled it out.
Yeah, so she's sort of... Yeah, she's definitely not ruling out at all, but here it seems like she's going a little bit further and sort of setting out why those tax rises might be difficult. And it's because Labour's really boxed themselves in with it, because in their manifesto they said they wouldn't raise taxes on working people, so national insurance, VAT, income tax. And so now they're sort of slightly stuck for options of where they go next. Wealth taxes are famously difficult to implement. They often drive quite mobile, rich people away from the country. And then a lot of other taxes don't raise that much money. So they're in a very, very difficult position.
Yeah, and that difficult position at the end of a week where we're reflecting on a year in government of Keir Starmer. Today is the day that he took office last year. The Mirror has a double-page spread on how they feel it's going so far, and we're having so many discussions about how difficult the welfare climb down this week. Rachel Reeves in tears at PMQs, and lots of headaches for the government. So how is the Mirror?
Yeah, no,
reflecting
exactly. I mean, when we look back on it, it's hard to imagine the government that we had coming into power a year ago compared to the one we have now. We had this phenomenal landslide where the Tories essentially got wiped out completely. They seemed like, Labour, when they came in, that they had the power to do anything. They could have put whatever they wanted through. But over the past year, we've sort of seen a Labour government that maybe doesn't necessarily know what it wants to put through. And in fact, what we've seen on all these U-turns and this flip-flopping around is that maybe Keir Starmer is too easy to push around. They did have an unenviable sort of in-tray of problems, whether that was the economy, whether that was illegal immigration, whether that was health and the waiting times. They've had all these issues to deal with, but the fact of the matter is the dial has not moved that much on the vast majority of them. Economy, one of the most important ones to the public, people are not feeling more well off. And when we look at now the popularity of the Labour government, they're hanging around the low sort of 20% in terms of actual popularity. Keir Starmer's personal rating is even lower. And they're being dominated on almost every front page and every aspect by Reform, who seem to be the only party that is doing well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that that's fair? Because Labour themselves would say, we always knew this was going to be a long-term goal. They would say we were dealt a pretty shoddy inheritance and it's going to take a while to turn things around.
100%. I mean, Labour has been perhaps they've spent too much time talking about their inheritance. They've been very clear, and they did have a difficult hand. There's no denying that when they came into office, the situation was really dire. Equally, I think a lot of people are disappointed with how Labour have gone forward and handled that. I think they've announced a lot of policies and then rode back on them. Last week's welfare decision was sort of a prime example of that. They sort of drove their MPs down a path that they didn't seem happy with, and at the very last minute rode back on it. And I think it's that level of chaos that people sort of expected better from Labour. I think they really thought there was going to be a shift from the Tories moving on to Labour and they'd get a bit more consistency and stability. So I think there is a sense of disappointment with how they've done.
Well, yeah, and one of the promises was to smash the gangs when it came to small boats, not stop the boats, which was Rishi Sunak's mantra, which they didn't manage to do either. Take us to, which paper is this? This is The Express, isn't it? A double-page spread here, looking at the number of arrivals over the last year.
Yeah, so they've got figures that shows that 120 arrivals per day under Keir Starmer. To put that into context, under Rishi Sunak, that figure was at around 82, and then Boris Johnson, it was at around 58. So they're basically saying it's got so much worse under Starmer, and it comes just a few days after arrivals surpassed 20,000 last week, which is the highest total at the halfway point of a year we've seen since records began. So it doesn't look like the Prime Minister's doing a very good job at getting those numbers down. He is struggling to, and he's also struggling to get down our spend on asylum hotels. And I think when it comes to tackling that threat from reform, the Prime Minister's really put tackling small boat numbers at the centre of that mission. Obviously, there are some Labour MPs that are unhappy with it. They're accusing the government of mimicking reform's rhetoric and being almost xenophobic when it comes to stopping the boats. But equally, an awful lot of people are concerned about it, and he did say it was one of the government's priorities.
And the government would argue we are speeding up the return of failed asylum seekers, and again, this is going to take time, but this is something that reform will seize on.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something the reform is already seizing on, and again, it's something that's quite easy for them to seize on because they don't actually have to manage or control it at this point. But yeah, they're definitely seizing.
I'm going to rush us on because I promised to talk pets, and obviously it's very important. So this is a story in The Guardian. And this is about the benefits of pets.
Yes.
And you both have pets. We're very balanced on this programme. You've got a dog, haven't you, Letty?
Yes, I
And you've
do.
got a cat.
I do indeed.
So what is this article telling us? We haven't got very long.
It's a study showing that having a cat or a dog will slow cognitive decline. So it's basically looking at the benefits of having pets. And I mean, as a cat owner myself, the sort of reduction in stress that comes with coming home to a pet that's absolutely thrilled to see you, wonderful. My testimony is strong on this one.
Is that what it's down to? It's feeling appreciated, or is it literally the calming sensation of stroking a pet?
I think there's so many aspects to this. We were talking about this just before, but as like having a dog and having to force yourself to go out and take it for walks or buy food for it and do little things that make you more active in your everyday life, there are untold benefits.
Sometimes very warm, sometimes quite chilly.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.